For the second episode of this book club, we'll be talking about identity, the insecurities of being a teenager, all that. And we'll get started with some discussion, beginning with the sailor and then shift the conversation towards Noboru himself. So, the sailor to Noboru is basically a beacon of hope, almost, because, I'll tell you why, because what the entire novel lacks is role models, right? And we always hear today, at least in our circles, people complain about not having any good role models. But in the novel, it's not so much that there aren't any good role models, it's that there are no role models to begin with. And in fact, all the adults are gone. The teacher they talk of is not present. His mother spends most of the day uh, in a clothing store selling dresses to Western celebrities, which can be seen as a metaphor for Western consumerism taking over Japan. So really, the adult world, at least to Noboru, is dead and strangling.
It's not so much that he sees uh, adult life as a plague, or that he sees that as the worst thing. It's more that it's the loss of values, and for him, you have to die in a blaze of glory. Anything less than an ideal is a disappointment. And so even though he respects Ryuji's life and Ryuji being a sailor, if Ryuji doesn't die on the sea doing some gloriful act, then Noboru will be disappointed. Like, if for him, it's not enough to just live a full life and die of old age. It has to be just a blast of just an explosion into death. And so I think he, as you were saying, he's very immature. He can't accept that people are it, from his view, that they can even be flawed. It's like anything less than an ideal is a disappointment.
Yeah, I noticed that there's this extreme all or nothing attitude by Noboru, right? But you have to understand that this all exists in the wider context of questioning how certain moods, questioning how certain moods that pervade the zeitgeist can influence the mood of the people that constitute the zeitgeist. And I think intuitively, Noboru knows that the mood is one of spiritual depression, right? It's almost like the sign of a time, yeah, the sign of the times seeing, or the end of history, if you will, because the empire is dead, and with it, so are their dreams. And so you could almost say it's an unbecoming of age. Their identity is dying, and Noboru knows this. Noboru knows that they no longer have an identity.
He also he gets stripped of his name when he's with his friends. So adding to that lack of identity, they call each other by numbers. I forgot which number he was, but one's like I think number 5, and then there's just
Three.
one that is called something else. Number 3?
That was the chief.
Oh yeah, the chief, and then the others are just numbers, completely stripped of their identity by their names.
Yeah, and so he's losing identity, but at the same time, he wants to live a certain way. Hence that. So hence what you said on becoming the ideal, right? And so the important thing is to see the details of the book as an attempt to live up to his ideas of glory. So what you get is the future is dead, essentially, but he wants to live up to some sort of archetype, and that archetype is manifested by the sailor, which he feels is a way to rebel against the future, what the future has to offer, or to put it more accurately, what the future doesn't have to offer.
But for Noboru, he just wants to embody this archetype, and he thinks the right way is, oh, let me go around killing animals to to find glory, and he's just trying too hard because it's just not his natural state.
Or even go to the closet, because in the first page of the book, it's mentioned that he's being locked in because he would go out otherwise. So
Mm-hmm.
he does take these risks, and he lives like a sailor in his own way.
Maybe, but to me, it doesn't seem like he does that naturally. Like, I don't know, maybe I interpret it
Yeah,
wrong,
I mean,
but
yeah, that's what I said, that he's
oh,
trying
okay.
to
Oh,
live
sorry.
up to a role that he's imposed upon himself,
Okay,
rather
okay.
than
I
being an
misunderstood you.
intrinsic drive. it was not a lack of self-identity. It's just a different way of constructing identity.
Oh,
Like
okay.
he was trying to, yeah, like the way he sees everything is you have to be sincere. That's why their whole, uh, the, there was this one part where they were bashing fathers because fathers were not living up to uh, their supposed sincere roles that they should have been according to the chief and the clan. So in that way there isn't there is a construct of self identity, but it's so set in a really archaic way that I mean, and that's why I sort of equate it with the Bushido culture. So like Bushido, that whole ideology, there's uh, I mean the the way you construct identity of yourselves and your environment, there's like two sort of ways that have been expounded upon by this theorist called something trilling. So one is sincerity, that the role that's sort of put upon you, you try to live up to that, and that's what they do. The clan, that if you are number one, you only do things that the number one does, and the way he sees the sailor is that he has to live up to what a sailor does. Otherwise, he is no sailor. And and anything he does that's not heroic is going to be a crime against humanity or crime against Noboru. On the other hand, the sailor, he is what you would call an authentic. His construction of identity would be authenticity. That there's an inner drive that leads him to this adventure, and he tries to fulfill that. So there was this dichotomy that I did notice.
Yeah, so I think we're all agreeing here that his unorthodox methods, let's say, like killing animals, is his vain attempt to live up to past archetypes.
And you also have to question where where did he get the idea that killing innocent animals who can't even fight back is like a glorious act? You know, it shows that he really is a bit of a poser because he has no idea of what true glory is. Like true acts in my eyes that embody the ideal of virtue are things that people don't even think about. You know, like the ideal man does not think he's the ideal man. It doesn't matter to him. He just embodies the way he lives. And then I mean I think there's no such thing truly as an ideal man. I think everyone has faults, but you know, people move on and Ryuji moves on. And that's perfectly normal to him because it's true to himself. But as you were saying, for someone like Noboru, he has no sense of self. So if he isn't fitting into the mold of the archetype, then he's nothing. And he doesn't even have a good idea of what that archetype is.
So obviously the kid is really confused, and partially that's because of lacking any role models, but at the same time the sailor, even though he's by all accounts a normal person, is to Noboru seen as a villain. So then I'd have to ask, is Noboru accurately is Noboru accurately representing the ideas of Mishima, or is Mishima deliberately strawmanning himself through Noboru?
I think it's a mixed batch. Like I think there are parts of the kid's philosophy that Mishima may have agreed with, but I think overall, I mean, he was showing there were a lot of scenes the way I read it that showed how immature the kid was, and it would be a shocker to think that Mishima thought that he was doing the right actions. You know, like there are a lot of things that exemplify just the immaturity of the child of Noboru.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when he talks about the charges. They just seem very immature. The charges against Fuji. There's not really much to it.
Mm-hmm. It has no sense of forgiveness and overcoming. It's just it's latching on to like regrets. Not regrets, but the charges are a way of latching on to the past and not letting go and not being able to move on and just being so hurt and so having these charges, what people do to him, living rent free in his head, just being so affected by them. I think is very immature.
See, this is what makes the symbolism in this book really, really cryptic, because I would think that like if Mishima had to take a moral stance in this book, which he didn't, but if he had to take one, it would be to preserve conservative values. But he portrays them in a way that I mean, it's almost like a caricature of these like the right wing kids you have right now on Reddit or 4chan, almost,
Or even on Discord.
or even on Discord, yeah. So in that way, like yeah, I had trouble getting the final message out of this book
Yeah.
because it was so cryptic.
Well, I think Mishima's just in general probably a very complicated person. Like he probably, I think what's true for everyone is there's a lot of hypocrisy in most philosophy and a lot of contradictions, especially when it's taken to an extreme. So maybe Mishima was trying to show how wrong the samurai code is when taken to an extreme that the children take it to by putting it on them upon themselves to kill innocent animals, because they think that's the right way.
Well, what I think, I haven't finished it, but what I think the message that he's trying to convey is they're looking for glory in a way. The child being bred in a very immature way to show that he's not really understanding it and he just wants violence and blood. And then the sailor, he he longs for something, but he's not really sure why. And then Kohei, you mentioned that he changes his course. I don't know if he what this decision he makes, but I don't know. It really shows. First, he thought that he was gonna find it at the sea, and he realizes that there's nothing to it. He's convinced that he is better than everyone else, that he has a mission in his life, and that he's so special. He's meant for glory. And what I find it very funny when he talks with the mother. I forget the name. When
Fusako.
he says she doesn't understand.
Fusako.
Sorry,
Fusako.
Fusako, I believe is her name.
can you guys repeat
The
it?
mother.
Fusako.
Fusako?
Fusako.
Oh, is it Fusaka? Sorry, I don't know
Fusako, okay.
pronunciation.
Okay, yeah. When he makes a contrast when he starts talking about the song, and he says things like she wouldn't understand. Women don't get this kind of thing. They don't understand the depth. But what comes out of his mouth, not that deep. And when she recalls it, she thinks, "Oh, this is such a simple man." I think that's sort of the message that Mishima is going for. That they're all looking for glory. Maybe the mother, the Fusako, is looking for it by means of giving into westernization, but she's also not finding anything to it. So I think that's.
If I remember, sorry, if I remember correctly, I believe it was that he didn't say what he truly wanted to say, or the sailor when he was speaking to Fusako. I think, I mean, I could be misremembering this. I did read it like a week ago, but I think he said the song, or he sung lines of the song, and he was disappointed that he did that, and he didn't say how he was truly feeling on the inside, and he regretted that. But
He couldn't find the words.
yeah, he couldn't find the words. That's it.
Yeah.
I
Go
don't know.
ahead.
I don't know if.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know if maybe he remembers it that way, because every single character sees things differently, and I don't know if that's Rudy remembering it like that, saying, "Oh crap, I couldn't find the words to say it. Like my was good, but she couldn't understand it, and I couldn't and I couldn't say it clearly. I don't know if that's a way to make himself feel better. Like I was misunderstood, not because my ideas are bad, but because I couldn't say them correctly. Because the entire conversation, he couldn't say anything in the way that he wanted to, or in a way that he thought he was going to be understood. So maybe that's the way that he remembers it. But it's a way to shield himself from realizing that there's not really much to his idea.
Yeah. Okay. So I found the page, and he does start singing the song, and he goes like, "I guess it's pretty funny. It's my favorite song." And then he does go on. I didn't remember this saying she can't penetrate to the feelings deep down in a song like this, or see through the murk of my manhood to the longing that sometimes makes me weep. So yeah, true. I guess I've forgotten that part where he thought that she couldn't understand what he was trying to say, but he also didn't say what he was trying to say. It came out wrong, and he regretted that.